Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for being here. Welcome to day 15 of Endurance and Echoes, 45 days of running, cycling, and the stories that shaped me. Now, on day 15, I am supposed to be running 27 kilometers, and by now, I am getting comfortable and I begin to procrastinate a lot, because especially on the activities, because I tell myself, it's just 27 kilometers, that's around 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and I'll be done. As compared to when I started, and the first one was 45 kilometers, which took me like 5 hours. And so I'm looking at it like this is 2.5 hours, and I end up almost every day, I end up rushing to finish my activity just before midnight. So I find myself running until 11:30, and I don't like that. But I get to do the 27 kilometers, and the story for year 15. Year 15, what I can remember is that I was sexually assaulted. My mom I hired a distant male relative of hers to work and live with us. And he assaulted me. I don't remember how it happened. Abusers have to groom you. There must have been grooming, so that by the time it was happening, I was not able to resist. I remember 3 instances, and now being a child and adolescent psychologist, I ask myself why I did not report, 1, and number 2, something interesting about the human brain. The human brain is meant to help us survive, especially for children. And so sometimes you find that when you go through traumatic events in your life, your brain finds a way to hide them. And for me, this was hidden so much. My brain did a good job in hiding this until last year at 43, when I was in therapy just after I had lost a pregnancy. And my therapist asked if I had been sexually assaulted. And it came at that time. And I remember even growing up, people talking about their sexual abuse. I was like, me, I was not sexually abused. It never came up. Mine happened at 15. For children, mostly, they say statistically that the average age of sexual abuse is 7. And the average age of reporting, I want you to listen to this keenly. The average age of reporting is 53. This means that some victims of sexual abuse die without reporting, without saying it to anyone. They die with it. And most perpetrators are never brought to book, because by the time it is reported, it is long gone. Some of them have even died. They don't even, it is a story. It is a sorry state of affairs. I have not told anyone apart from my therapist and now my children, because I realized that in my parenting, I was responding to my trauma unknowingly. And now that I am aware, I can recollect and say, I did this, I was responding to this kind of trauma, even by the time I had not acknowledged that it happened. I was parenting, I was coping. The body keeps record, even when the mind is not ready. My mind was not ready to say this, to release this, but my body was already responding long before my mind and mouth were ready to accept and talk about this. Another thing with sexual abuse, the mind tries to hide our unpleasant experiences. And for some people, especially adolescents, it comes up at teenage, when they cannot take it anymore because there is growth and they want to know more about themselves, and the body just responds in a certain way. And you find that they become disobedient, they become defiant, some engage in risky sexual behavior. And another thing that I would like to highlight with this is that there is abuse done by female caregivers. When we give our children to be taken care of by caregivers who are female, we don't suspect them, especially if our children are girls. Because females are nurturing in nature, and so we don't expect them to harm children. Most adolescents that I have encountered in therapy were abused by female caregivers. And they groom them, and this happens mostly at a time when there is chaos in your house. So take care and be aware when there is chaos in your house and there is someone who is too close to your child. Your child will be abused and they will not report, because children also see the chaos in the house. And they'll be like, mom is already going through a lot, dad is already going through a lot, and I do not want to give them this devastating news. For my case, I didn't even know what it was. How was I going to report what I did not know what it was? And also, in the same breath, we were going through something as a family. I think it was the time that my mom discovered that she was diabetic, so she was dealing with a lot. My dad had just lost his job. My mom was taking care of the 5 of us. We were in boarding school, others in high school. And so I didn't want to be the one who gives her another devastating news. And it is a very hard position to be in as a child. Thinking that you have to protect your parent and thereby neglecting your need, which in most cases is dire. And so many children end up not reporting because of the circumstances. Sometimes these things mostly happen when there is chaos at home. Either there's you are fighting, there's no one at home, there's transition, and the child sees it as not the appropriate time to report. Another thing is that sometimes children also don't report because this person has threatened them, that they will kill everyone in their family. And being a caregiver, this is somebody this child trusts. And when they tell them, I will kill them, they will believe it. Also, another reason that children don't report is because sometimes they come. And when they come, they feel that like they have had pleasure. And so how do they go to report and they enjoy it? And if this happened to you when you were a child, and if this happens to you when you are a child, don't be afraid to report, because when this happens, you feel like your body has betrayed your mind, because the mind knows this is wrong, but the body had pleasure. But it was not pleasure. Your body just responded the way it was supposed to respond when it is touched in a certain way. Your private parts are meant for pleasure. And so remember, when you're growing, it doesn't just happen it doesn't just happen at puberty. We were created in such a way that this growth is progressive. But when you reach puberty, it is heightened. So when your body is touched in a certain way, it will respond. And that was your body responding. And you feel that you cannot report because there was some sort of pleasure. It is not pleasure. It is just your body responding the way it is supposed to do. And that prevents you from reporting because you think you enjoyed. But at the back of your mind, you know there was no enjoyment. Something wrong was done to you. If that happens, please report. And as parents, we need to educate our children. I was saying that I have not told this to anyone except my children and my therapist. I had to tell my children because the body keeps a score. And if you do not tell your child, they are carrying your DNA. And as I said, the body keeps a score. That is why you find that the trauma of your mother, the trauma of your grandmother, the trauma of your great-grandmother happens to you because you have their DNA. It might happen in a different way, but if you look back, you'll see that their trauma is catching up with yours. And so I told my children, and I have really tried to educate them on issues around sexual abuse, assault, and grooming. And this is how I responded to this trauma in my parenting. I have always wanted to know where my children are. If I do not know where they are even for a minute, and sometimes this happens in church when they're still younger, children play and they run around, and I lose sight of them for 5 minutes, I become apprehensive. I want to know where they are, who they are with, so that it doesn't happen to them. Another way that I also responded to this trauma in my parenting. Unknowingly, I'm just realizing this now, is that, when children start school, they start using the washroom in school, and most often they come back with UTIs, their vaginas or penises. They're mostly girls, they say it is itchy. Whenever this happened, mostly with Mallory, she's now 13. Whenever she said that she had a problem with her vagina was either itchy or something, the first question I would ask her, did anyone touch it? Did anyone do it? And I did not ask it politely as I am doing now. I was very apprehensive. Did anyone touch it? So it scared her. At some point I realized I was scaring her, and so I tried to back off. But as long as I did not work on this trauma, as long as I did not work on it, it kept showing up in my parenting. Another way that this also has shown up in my parenting is by my children don't sleep with house helps. If I find out, sometimes they're scared, they go into her bed. If I find out that they have slept with her, I will try and ask. And sometimes a child just has a nightmare and they go to the next bed. I will ask them, did this happen? Did they touch you inappropriately? Did they do this? And it becomes investigative, which is not very nice. It scares them. And I realized that our pasts and our traumas really show up in our parenting. And that is why you find that our children really trigger us, because it reminds us of those unpleasant things that we went through. And in doing these stories of my life, I have realized that there were some things that were buried. Another reason that I would like to talk about why sexual assault victims do not report is shame. You are ashamed. We are ashamed of what happened to us. And the abuser thrives in our shame. Silence enables the abuser. They know you'll be too ashamed to talk about it because we'll want to know the details and everything. And that is why victims do not talk. It's because of shame. And the same also applies to children and adolescents. They do not want to talk about sexual assault because they are ashamed of what happened to them. And the abuser will thrive on this. They will go on perpetrating this because they know you are too scared to speak. Do not be afraid to talk. If you have been assaulted, it's assault. There is no shame. And the rest of us should also stop shaming the victim. Asking them, what were you wearing? Where were you? Who were you with? What do you want to quantify before you believe them? Now I want to move to how sexual assault affects children and adolescents. One, they get withdrawn, they get anxiety, some of them get nightmares, and some of these nightmares go on until their 20s. I have seen adolescents in therapy who come and they have nightmares. They are 20, 18, 22. And so if you realize that your child is always getting nightmares or they are getting withdrawn, a child who was previously bubbly, pay attention. Essentially, the world has become so bad that we as parents are called to pay attention to our children. It could be their withdrawal, their behavior could be as a result of sexual abuse. Another thing that I want to talk about that affects children who have been assaulted. And if you are a parent of a child who has been sexually assaulted or has become a mom or a dad at a young age, I need you to be keen on this one, because remember, the body has been touched a certain way. The pleasure has been ignited at a time when it shouldn't have been ignited. And the pleasure that came with the assault, it was as if the body betrayed the mind, the conscious, because the conscious knows it is wrong, but the body responded in a certain way that is supposed to respond when it is touched in a certain way. So this feeling has been aroused. It has been ignited. Yeah, because when there is pleasure, there is when there's pleasure, there is the oxytocin, there is dopamine, and there is the endorphins. This combination drives these children crazy. And that is why you find that sometimes a child goes back to their abuser. It is not because they want to. They are seeking that pleasure. And that is the only way they know how at the moment to seek that pleasure. And so the abuse continues. So you can't ask a child, why did you go back? One, their brain has not grown. And two, this pleasure, this desire has taken over them. It is now driving them. And this is why God created sex for marriage. You can imagine if this thing drives adults, couscous. How about children who do not have a sense of control, who are still developing a sense of control? And in most cases, they are dealing with this on their own. So it's even worse. So if you have had a child who has experienced sexual assault, sexual abuse, and you know of it, it is your duty to guide them away from going to chase the pleasure that they felt when they were assaulted or abused. Another thing that I need you to note, this is especially for children, for girls who get pregnant and have babies. Again, there is a likelihood that they will get pregnant a second time. Because in as much as they have learned their lessons and they have seen consequences, they still are going after that pleasure. And if you've had a child, or when you are growing up, there was a girl who got pregnant, or there was a boy who impregnated a girl, they'll not do it just once. They will go repeatedly. They will not stop because they are chasing that pleasure. So if you know your child has had sex, or has been assaulted, or has been abused, it is your duty as a parent to support them so that they do not become dependent on chasing the pleasure that they had gotten. If they had gotten pregnant, they will become pregnant again if you do not guide them. By the time they are coming back to themselves and realizing that this is not it, they shall have made many, many mistakes. Maybe there'll be 2 children, 3 children, or even 4 children in. Or they will be sick with sexually transmitted infections. And so when your child gets pregnant, when your child has sex, when your child is assaulted, it is not about you. As a parent, it is time for you to step aside. Put your ego aside and help this child. Put your ego aside, I say it again. Put your ego aside and help this child. If it is sex that they have had, put your reputation aside. It is not you. It is the child that needs help. Help them with this. It is not time for you to be Deputy Jesus. Another thing that I want to mention in this video is that as a result of sexual abuse, sexual assault, you'll find many of these children, when they get to high school or campus, they either become lesbians, gay, or overly promiscuous, depending on who assaulted them. If it is a boy who was introduced to this who was abused by a female caregiver, they'll be promiscuous and they will be looking for older women or just any random person. If it is a boy who was abused by a male, they are likely to be homosexual. If it is a girl who was abused by a man, they are likely to be sleeping around with men again. Remember, they are chasing that feeling. If it was a girl who was abused by a female caregiver, they are likely to be lesbians. Puberty is a period of experimenting, and some children and adolescents experiment a lot sexually. When you hear your child, or you've been called to school that your child is either homosexual or lesbian, find out if there had been abuse before. In most cases, there have been abuse before. But if there have not been an abuse before, treat it as a case of curiosity, and most of them drop it, especially for girls. Lesbianism, they drop it by the time they are older. It is not a time for you to look at your reputation. Help your child. Your child is screaming for help. You can also not be screaming for glory. You can also not be screaming to protect your reputation. It is a time to step aside and protect that child. It is a time to step aside and guide that adolescent. It is not about you, my dear parent. And on issues on sexual matters, please talk to your children. Let us not be ashamed. Remember, the abuser thrives on our silence and ignorance. If your child does not know, someone else will teach them something else that will likely be wrong, that will likely destroy them. Watch your children like hawks. This world, in as much as we pray and teach them, we need to watch and guide. It is our duty to take care of our children. This was a long one because it is a matter that is so dear to me. But I hope that as a parent, you've gotten something to help you with your child, something to help you look back and see how your childhood experiences are showing up in your parenting. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.